which is famous for its high-quality rice production. Hello, Erica and Huiyao. How are things going over there?
Hello there, Pandan. Eric and I have just arrived in Wuchang. It's about a 4-hour drive southeast of Harbin, which is where we were yesterday.
Loved it.
And for more...
Yeah, and really, when we pulled into Wuchang, as we were driving here across those 4 hours on the bus, it was amazing because we were in such an urban city of Harbin, which we love, but now beautiful, famous Wuchang rice. But to give people an idea of really the rural population, Harbin urban population 10 million, here only about 1 million.
And it's so special, the Wuchang rice you mentioned. My dad was on travel and already texted me to bring him some back.
And I'm going to make sure you do that.
I will.
Okay. All right. Let's give you a closer look, though, at this amazing, famous rice. This is one of China's time-honored brands. Here we go. Beautiful. Wow. And pretty close to harvest.
Yeah. Well, they say it's like 10 days away.
So that seems pretty close.
Yes.
I can't wait to try it, actually. But this area is not just known for its rice. Other staples, they've got corn, soybean. Really, in the end, wheat is a huge staple all across China.
Yes, and this is why there's a lot of focus and emphasis on food security.
Yes.
And our reporter Zheng Yibin has more from Shanxi province.
A familiar staple crop to many, wheat. It's used to make a variety of dishes in Chinese cuisine. But few know its genetic makeup is far more complicated than rice and even human DNA. For some scientists, they say sequencing the wheat genome is like climbing Mount Chimoloma. International researchers are working on ways to increase its yield and nutrition. The genetic code of wheat was finally unlocked a year ago after more than a decade of research. Chinese scientists were part of the collaboration.
After we decipher this codebook, we can further explore the life process of wheat from the molecular level to analyze its growth and its reproduction. This is based on our basic theoretical studies.
For Song and his peers, a growing population, the loss of farmland, and climate change are posing threats to food security not only for China, but other countries.
So next, their priority is to find higher-yielding varieties that adapt to diverse environments. For this part, they are always ready to make new efforts.
Zhang Zhengmao has been breeding wheat for more than 30 years.
With
the genetic information, we will use the strategy of molecular design and wheat breeding to meet our needs. In that case, we will have breakthroughs to have better nutrition, resistance, and quality of wheat.
Experts say ongoing research to develop new strains is getting results.
In the past 7 decades, the wheat crop in China has updated 7 times, and each time marks an evidently higher yield.
China is the world's largest wheat producer and consumer, but concerns remain.
When it comes to quality, there's still a huge space for improvement. We need to keep working on this.
Researchers say having the variety of wheat strains is key to understanding how genes evolve and what can help to resist drought and pests. It's especially important for a country like China, home to about 20% of the world's population. Zheng Yibing, CGTN, Yangling, Shanxi Province.
5. All right, so food security, big issue. We'll be talking about that for most of the show here. But back here in Wuchang, I got to try this famous rice. I'm dying to.
Well, you have to. Well, this is just some of the Wuchang rice we've been talking about that dates back 200 years ago.
Oh my goodness. Oh my
God.
Do
you want to get a taste of how?
Yes.
Okay.
Serve me, please.
I'll be your server. I'll serve it for you. Just for you, Erica.
谢谢.
All right.
Okay.
You know how to use chopsticks,
I'm going to
do you?
show my chopstick skills at this point, yeah?
How does it taste?
Okay. 好吃,非常好吃.
Do you notice like any difference?
Yes, I think so. I mean, look, I'm not a big rice eater, but this tastes tasty. I know, though, what people who eat rice all the time and love it really talk about the amazing aroma, how it's definitely a nice sticky rice, but it also has, I'm going to take a second bite, but it also has a little sweetness to it as well.
Yes, we're going to have a lot of that for lunch. But as for now, we're now joined by local guest, Mr. Zhang Ye, Chief of Wuchang Administration for Market Regulation, and also Mr. Yi Yanchen.
Yes, he's the director of Wuchang Bureau of Agriculture and Rural Affairs. So we'll start with Mr. Yi Yanchen. 谢谢. What makes Wuchang rice one of the best brands in China?
五常大米为什么能成为中国最好的大米？
The Wuchang rice is growing at the best location, the northern altitude in the country, and we have very special climate conditions, a lot of natural conditions to favor the growth of the Wuchang rice, and also the spring water to do the irrigation. We can only find similar conditions here in Wuchang area. So we can say that you can find no similar products elsewhere in the country.
And Mr. Zhang, I want to ask you about this modern agricultural production in Wuchang. 能不能给我们介绍一下这个武昌的这个农业的现代化做得怎么样？
武昌呢，从
In Wuchang, we are transforming the traditional agriculture towards a modernized one. We have put attention to the high quality of development. We have used agricultural modernization to increase the income of the farmers and to apply the rural reinvigoration strategy. We will spare no efforts to continue with this.
And Mr. Zhang, if you could just talk to us a little bit about the harvest coming up.
能不能给我们介绍一下这个马上快要丰收了这一块的情况？以及武昌大米这个品牌是如何走向这个这么知名的？
武昌大米走的是品种加
For
品质加
Wuchang
品牌的可持
rice,
续。
we have actually followed the path of sustainable development with quality plus brand making. The local authorities have made a lot of efforts. For example, the internet plus agriculture, big data, cloud computing, etc. We have found a new path for development. In the future, it will become the best known brand in the whole world for rice.
Okay, 谢谢. All right, we want to go now to our colleagues Li Jianghua and Lindy, who are on the southeast route, and they're traveling from Shantou to Xiamen in Guangdong province. Hey, guys. We know that Xiamen is famous for its fishing industry there. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, hi Erica and Huiyao. Happy Mid-Autumn Day first, and this is also the Mooncake Festival, and I know we are totally enjoying the high quality rice in Wuchang, and now we're on our way to Xiamen in East China's Fujian province, and now as you can see this is toll gate and we're going to a new city. It's pretty clear, right? But when it comes to food production, we have to admit, and this place is not as a big producer as northeast China or central China, especially when it comes to rice, but we have very abundant seafood resources, isn't it, Lindy?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, as we've been driving into Xiamen, we've been crossing bridges, and you can see on the water that there is aquaculture happening here. We know, of course, that some of the islands here produce massive amounts of seafood products, and that's from abalone, kelp, and seaweed. Very popular products here.
Indeed. So now let's introduce our guests, and we have Andy Bock, our old friend who is the senior fellow at China and Globalization, also our new friend, our new guest, John Gong, who is a professor with University of International Business and
Economics,
of course. Okay, so I'm going to start with you, Andy. So China is said to be the largest consumer of seafood, nearly half of the global total. So is that true?
I think that absolutely is true. And the reason for this is we're witnessing the biggest, the creation of the largest consumer class in the world history. So with China's not only rising disposable income, but as consumers become increasingly savvy and knowledgeable from traveling around the world, from businesses setting up here, offering new products and services, that it's no surprise that seafood is one of them as well. So everything from salmon from the Pacific Northwest in the United States to Maine lobsters, shrimp, Japanese sushi, all have really become very, very popular here, which is also why China has a very robust domestic production capability when it comes to seafood. You mentioned aquaculture, Lindy, but also fishing as well, but also why so many vendors and countries all around the world are clamoring to get into the China market and sell seafood and other consumer products to this growing middle class.
And of course, as you're saying that it's a very big market, John, bringing you in here, there of course is a lot of concern around the world about declining fish stocks, and this is a concern in many, many parts of the world. What measures is China taking to ensure that they're engaging in sustainable fishing practices, not only in the country, but of course perhaps where they have operations outside of China?
Yeah, well, Andy referred to the fact that people in China are increasing more and more consumption of seafood. When I was a young boy, we used to eat a lot of rice. Between rice and seafood, any day, I think people's choice very clear, right? But I think what's happening right now is that the fishing industry in China is getting deeper into the sea, deeper into the ocean. So we have those, really far going into the sea fleets from China, they're fishing in far away places, in coastal Africa, for example, as you mentioned. And I think they're bringing also with them, really high sophisticated technology in terms of using sonar technology, for example. So the productivity is going up, but also I think has impact on the local community, the fishing community that has been using the traditional means of fishing, and they're losing the competitive edge, I guess. So I think that's a concern. It's a very legitimate concern. So I think when this industry keeps growing, and when people in China eat more seafood, we have to keep in mind that there are also other people on the planet that are struggling right now. So I think we need to take into that consideration and develop some policies to address these concerns.
And of course, you say there are some policies already, right, that limit times when people can fish.
The fishing ban. The fishing ban in China usually ends around September the 1st, but that really depends on different area we're talking about. Sometimes it starts from April the 1st, sometimes May the 1st. But it is very strict, and now is the fishing season. And today, of course, we're going to probably have some seafood tonight when it arrives in Xiamen.
I hope so indeed. Well, let's take it back then to you, Erica and Huya. Of course, if you guys are bringing in the rice, we'll bring the fish, and somewhere, hopefully, we'll meet up together and be able to have dinner at some point. But for now, back to you.
I like that idea.
I like that. Very complimentary. Thank you so much, Jianhua and Lindy. And now we go to Taoyuan and Shan in Panzhihua, which is the only city in China named for a flower.
Oh, pretty.
You know that Panzhihua is the city with fresh vegetables and fruits all year round. So tell us more on the local specialties.
Hello, Huiyao and Erica, and first of all, happy Mid-Autumn Festival. So, we're finally in Sichuan province. First stop here, Panzhihua City. You know, this is actually one of the more prosperous cities here in southwest China. Population 1 million. Traditionally, economic activities here center around one of the country's largest iron mines as well as steel production. And that's why in 2004, it was actually listed as one of China's most polluted cities. So right now, the city is still one of China's biggest manufacturers of vanadium and titanium material, but it's also trying something else.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a city in change, a city in transition. And if our good friends in the southeast are going to bring the fish, and Erica and Weiyao are going to provide the rice, then we shall bring the fruit. That is what this area is known for. We have a couple of our guests here as well who are going to talk about how this area has become so prosperous. Victor Gao, thank you very much. And of course,
thank you for having me again.
But I want to talk firstly just to show you why we have this fruit here. This is what comes out of this area. Some great fruits, and of course mango they're known for very well. And Taoyuan just mentioned Mid-Autumn Festival. So we have to have some mooncakes. Since our colleagues here can't be with their families, everybody's going to enjoy a mooncake later on with the traveling family we have here.
Exactly. Exactly. So, Victor, let me start with you. I think Panzhihua is lucky in that it turned from one of the country's most polluted cities into what it is today. It's lucky in that it found mango as sort of one of a suitable produce to grow here. I mean, China's southwest mountains, it's impossible for large-scale industrial farming here. So I think it's very important to find the kind of produce that is suitable for the weather and the soil in this region. How important do you think that is? You can't just grow anything you want, right?
Thank you very much for having me. First of all, please allow me to congratulate all of us for the Mid-Moon Festival again. It's a major festival in China. All families are gathered together to celebrate the Mid-Autumn Festival. So we are very happy to be here together with all our friends, online as well as offline. And I think for this part of Sichuan, agriculture has always been important, but given the terrain, especially here in Panzhihua, which still is in the mountainous area rather than on the plain, for example, how to select the best crop, how to do the farming with the highest level of efficiency and productivity has always been a challenge. Now, mango is produced here and is shipped to all parts of China, and it's much more value added than ordinary crops, for example. And whether, for example, this part of China, this part of Sichuan can identify either other value-added crops, for example. I understand several years ago, some people are talking about growing olive trees, for example, to produce olive oil. Maybe that's a possibility, but there must be other better crops that this part of Sichuan can grow. I think we really need more scientific research to come up with better solutions.
Right, also with the markets.
With the markets and with the connectivity now.
Right.
And I saw that Panzhihua is building high-speed railways.
We did see that on the way out here. Getting into this city of 1 million, which you're seeing right now as we drive through it, we did go on roads that weren't not nearly as modern or sophisticated as we saw in Guizhou province or in Henan province. But this is the key. There are so many different kinds of mangoes that are grown here. We have virtually every kind. We would love to eat them, but right now they're just a bit too green. But just look at these various kinds. And Mr. Chen, the challenge, of course, is getting it from the field to market. How is that changing, and how is that benefiting this province that has traditionally not been that wealthy?
It's actually two important aspects when you look at the economic changing here. The first is the information is actually much more fluent now. Previously we don't have a lot of internet, we don't have a lot of highways or high roads, so that when you produce something, first you cannot deliver them out to the markets on the coastal areas where people in Shanghai and Beijing are obviously earning much more than the peasants here. The second is that they don't know what you're producing, but now you have internet, these kind of things. The second important reason is that people in the coastal areas are actually becoming more and more rich, so they have more money to purchase the particular kinds of special products that you can produce here. The consumption level is actually rising, so this is also helping the region as well.
Of course, I think on one hand you have people in the villages with these amazing produce, and then on the other hand you have people in the cities who are becoming more and more health conscious and eager for good quality products.
Yeah, and as we mentioned, once we're all back in Beijing, we can have our friends in the southeast bring the fish, and of course we can bring all this wonderful fruit, maybe even a couple of mooncakes if you're left over, and then back to our friends in the northeast.
In the northeast, Erica and Huiyao.
Yeah, guys, I'm really loving this idea. We can all celebrate together for
the Mooncake Festival.
The Mooncake Festival. Absolutely. All right, so we've got more for you all. Let's cross live now to our reporter, Zhao Yongfei, who's in central China's Henan province, one of the country's major grain output provinces. So hello to you, Yongfei. What can you tell us about what you've learned out there?
Hey there, Erica and Huiyao. In my case, I can bring you some beans. Isn't that an amazing idea when people kind of celebrating the festival and be grateful for what they harvest from the land, especially at this meaningful family reunion day. I'm now at the bean field in Zhengzhou, the provincial capital of Henan, the central province, only has China's 7% of agriculture acreage, but it contributes 10% of grain to the entire country with 20 billion kilograms of grain and grain products per year. This is a significant improvement compared with the old days before the dawn of the new China era. Much of the nation suffered from extreme poverty and famine, namely one county in Henan province, in Lankao County, where many of these efforts started. Experts say people there have a different understanding of food security now and then.
Once there's food in hand, there's no panic in the heart. First of all, we need to meet the demand for food. Then we consider food safety. Lankao County has established a supervision system to ensure food safety.
Once there's food in hand, there's no panic in heart. Wang Zhensheng quoted what Mao Zedong wrote it in a poem when the People's Republic of China was just established. Back then, the country's main goal was to solve the problem of food and clothing. The saying also makes sense today, given the fact of the ongoing trade war between China and the United States. Wang Zhensheng says China has to make sure to feed its people despite international interferences. The price of the grain can strongly affect the country's economy. That's why food security or grain security has always been the country's priority in its 70 years of development. This year, the country's #1 document says some agricultural byproduct processing should be shifted from cities to villages. It's an attempt to boost the added value of the agricultural products. As Henan thrives on grain output, the country is ensuring farmers' dignity. And all of that, according to the Chinese government, is a practice of human rights. Back to you.
Well, thank you so much, Yunfei, for your report. And now, as the world's most populous nation, we know that agricultural development has ensured China's food security for decades. Now, in this episode of celebrating 70 years of New China, we will take you to the country's northeastern Heilongjiang province, which is where we are.
Yes,
and tell you more about China's grain granary.
Great Northern Wilderness, known as Beidahuang in Chinese. It refers to the extreme northeastern parts of China, the fertile plain surrounded by 3 rivers, Heilongjiang, Songhua, and Ushui rivers. After the founding of the People's Republic of China, hundreds of thousands of youngsters had been sent here in the nation's pursuit of agricultural modernity and national food security. The Great Northern Wilderness once held China's largest concentration of freshwater wetlands and has become home to China's largest cluster of state farms, which can now feed nearly 10% of the Chinese population. From frontier wasteland to a state granary, to a popular brand of organic foods, and finally to a national model for agricultural development, Beidahuang's wilderness illustrates the trajectory of China's quest for food security. And with the unprecedented scale of urbanization, many of China's traditional grain-producing bases have encountered a rural labor shortage, as many young laborers have left for city jobs. Smart farming by big agricultural conglomerates has been eyed to tackle the rural labor shortage, while realizing agricultural modernization. CGTN.
All right, so let's talk more about food security. This is such an important topic, and for that we are joined by our trusty guests who have been on the New China bus tour this entire time. We've got Senior Fellow of China Association of International Trade, which is Li Yong, xie xie, ni hao, and Einar Tangen, our current affairs commentator. So, food security, guys, big deal. We talked about this on the bus. Einar, 1.4 billion people in China. How important is food security?
Well, China is actually the largest producer of food in the world now, and it's also the largest importer. And as the middle class grows, what you're going to see is more increased emphasis on food security. They want to know what they're having. The idea of eating something fake that's not good for you does not sit well with the public. They expect the government to step in and provide that vital security. So what you have is old versus interacting with new. And by that I mean these beautiful fields that have been here for 100 and 200 years are now going to be combined with things like blockchain, which allows allows consumers to know exactly that they're getting the trusted brand that they intended to get.
Wow, thank you. And Professor Li, what are some of the challenges that China still face today on this issue?
Yeah, definitely. We face the challenges, especially for security. You know, we have just about 9% of the global arable land, 6% of the global freshwater supply, but we have 21% of the population. So feeding the people is very important because it involves maintaining social stability. Therefore, the central government, attaches great importance in the beginning of every year. They issue #1 document that is on agriculture, and we have a bottom line. For example, we will have to maintain, 180 million mu to make sure that we're able to produce enough supply of. But we will have to prepare for natural disaster and so on. So we need to maintain a good level of reserve just in case we have bad weather.
And by the way, we talked about this a little earlier. Just touch a little bit on the global impact on how important it is for China to focus on food security.
Yes, exactly. The total supply or the total amount of grain being traded on global market is just half of China's total consumption. So if China doesn't really have those bottom line red lines or reserves, in case of difficult times, I think the world, grain market is going to be very, very chaotic, and some of the smaller, poorer countries will be impacted, as a matter of fact, because of the chaotic and difficult situation. So it is for China's interest, but also global interest, to maintain food security, which is very important. It has not just implications on China, but also on the global stability.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Li Yang and Tangan, thank you both so much. We've learned so much. I've learned so much about food security.
Me too.
And I know what I want to do. What do you want to do next?
Lunch.
What are we going to have?
Rice.
What are we going to have, folks?
Wuchang rice.
Fish.
Fish and
grains. We'll combine everything. Yeah.
All right, so that does it for us, Pandong. Back to you in Beijing.
Thank you very much, Erica and Huiyao. Bon appetit, by the way. And also my colleagues on the routes in China's southeast and southwest regions tomorrow at 0400 GMT. That's 12 noon Beijing time. Join us once again as our reporters for New China bring us more on the country's poverty alleviation efforts. And we'll take a short break, and when we come back, we'll have a quick recap of where the journey took our teams yesterday.